What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down something with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down why we have more data coming out for tomorrow that could cause a lot more volatility. And what's going on so far is we have more things to talk about when it comes to our patterns and charts. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of the stock. Deposit $10,000 to get $300 worth, and deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon, so check out my links down below to get those free stocks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, as far as the market's going, as you could tell, we have some interesting volatility. SPY and the QQQ did sell off just a little bit towards the end of the day, but Tesla, it's still holding up well. Now, you'll see something very interesting in this pattern. You guys can see that Tesla had this point of support over here, and then we entered this like sell-off phase. This could either be phase A or early phase B, because if you guys could see this clearly, there's like a sell-off that tends to happen during this phase of an accumulation. This is the second version of the schematic for Wyckoff. And whether this is the sell test in phase B or if this is just like the early phase, it doesn't matter. Early on, you get some kind of sell-off pattern that looks like this. Then you eventually start to reaccumulate. And then this move right here looks like the last point of support right here as we started to make higher lows, higher lows again. And then we formed a bull flag and we're just starting to break out here. So we're going to be showing a sign of strength soon. I do think that Tesla will attempt to break out higher for that sign of strength. Then we're going to attempt to accumulate, then eventually break out for phase E. Once again, pushing closer to like 367 to 370 for the full accumulation, which looks more bullish. And you guys could compare these side by side if you want. But that's what we're essentially looking like on Tesla as our potential pattern. Now, what else could be mentioned is that this is also forming a potential accumulation like this, right? That's eventually going to take us right back up to these highs around that 367 to 370 area. So Tesla still looks bullish, and we could see quite a bit of upside over the next couple of weeks. On top of that, another bullish confluence is this. Tesla has a bull flag, right? This is quite clearly a bull flag. We're trying to break out of this. Now, the problem is Tesla has some tough resistance at that 350 area, and there's no guarantee we just smack past that, just we just explode. We could turn back down a little bit, reaccumulate, take some time, then eventually try to run back up for the 350s. That's what Tesla typically does on its runs. It likes to stair step its way up. It doesn't just go in a straight line usually. And that's the risk for Tesla for now, because the broader markets do have some data coming out for tomorrow, and there is some tough resistance. So we're going to see if Tesla breaks past this or not, or if we get some accumulation first before we end up starting to bounce and break out a lot higher. So I just want to say this because when you look at SPY and the QQQ, although we're holding up well, the daily charts are showing a little bit of weakness, which does suggest there could be a temporary sell-off. Keep in mind, I'm saying it's temporary because we're still bullish overall, meaning that the market has these lows, it rallies, makes a higher low, it rallies, makes a higher low, rallies to an equal high, comes back down. As long as we could hold the low that we made last week, as long as we don't lose that, we could still bounce and continue to break to all-time highs on SPY. And the QQQ could also reaccumulate and bounce. But my point in saying this is that the market has the potential to dip a little bit. If that ends up being the case, that could slow Tesla down before we try to bounce again. I'm going to break down exactly why that is and why you want to be a little bit careful with this resistance. So, starting off with the news, I just want to mention that there is some news about a potential lawsuit that could be coming out. Tesla could be facing a lawsuit over its Gigafactory Texas headquarters after the company succeeded in having a $1.2 billion value knocked off of its appraisal value, at least according to what reports suggest. Now, I'm not necessarily a real estate agent or like a tax attorney or anything like that, so I'm not going to go over the specific details. I'm just reading what these headlines are saying. And what's happening is the appraisal district's board moves stem from the July appraisal of the Tesla factory headquarters at more than $4.6 billion for the 2025 tax year. However, what they found is that they gave a property value of like $3.4 billion, a little bit short of what it could have been. So there might be a lawsuit over this. We're going to see what this leads to. But of course, you need specific details. You need to know exactly what went on. So keep that in mind. Things could be a little bit different from what is actually being reported, and we need more details before we can make any claims about that. But that's what's being said so far by mainstream media. On top of this, Tesla's going to be upgrading the autopilot visualization with a very, very awesome engine. In its future update, this is going to give us a lot more details. I think that's very awesome. So check out what they could do with these software updates. It makes it a lot easier for drivers. And then this will give them more details about the vehicles around them. I think it's very, very cool, at least nonetheless. Now, why is tomorrow going to be a big day? Okay. Well, the Tesla news that's coming out is not that significant, at least as of recent, but there is data that could affect the whole market, including Tesla. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, August 26th, 2025. Also, note that this is the last week of August, so there could be some manipulation towards the end of the week. But at 9 o'clock a.m., we have some housing data. The data at 8:30 is kind of like minor as well. That's all minor data, but starting at 10 o'clock a.m., we basically have consumer confidence data coming out. And then we have the Richmond Fed manufacturing numbers, the services revenue numbers, and a lot of data coming out from the Dallas Fed after that at 10:30. So 10 o'clock and 10:30, we have a lot of data coming out, the Richmond Fed manufacturing numbers and the Dallas Fed services numbers. And we'll see what that leads to, at least moving forward. So keep all of that in mind. Could cause some volatility here and there. But I do expect some volatility tomorrow at 10 a.m. once we get the manufacturing numbers and consumer confidence. So be ready just to be safe 30 minutes after the stock market opens, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, with the market coming down a bit, let me just wait for this to load. It's not necessarily because the market is like now, thinking that the Fed's not going to cut or anything like that. I know I saw some reports about that. That's not actually true. Right now, consumer confidence is still well, and then we're also seeing that there's an 83% chance the Fed's going to cut the same as yesterday. So this has not shifted. The market selling off a little bit has to do with our, I would say, the resistance technicals and also some things President Trump had said. Under President Trump, I just want to say that there's some analysts that are saying there's about a 50% chance we see a recession. But of course, you can't just pin everything in one way like that. There's external factors affecting things, from the interest rates to geopolitics. The tariffs also affect things. And yes, you could attribute that to Trump, but it has to do with a lot of different factors. So my point is just that, yes, we could see a recession. We would have seen one regardless of, a lot of what was going on. And I'm not here to kind of like debate about that. I think we're going to likely see one, but I'm not like trying to determine exactly when it's going to be or anything like that. My best move would be to just, know it's going to be coming and just know what the effects are going to be, right? Regardless of if we enter an economic dictionary definition recession or not, there's going to be higher unemployment. We know there's going to be more unemployment coming. We know there's going to be some pain because of the high interest rates. And we know there's going to be some inflation that's going to be going up to some extent. So we know there's pain coming regardless of this, despite what these reports are saying about the recession. So my point is, whether it's a recession or not, I'm not. I'm just prepared for pain anyways. I think everyone should be prepared just to be safe. And we know that there's going to be some economic hardships coming regardless of these reports. It's going to come anyways, so be prepared. And I just want to be very honest about that. On top of this, I want to add on that President Trump met up with the president of South Korea. They're keeping the 15% tariffs nonetheless. That's not really changing. And then President Trump was talking about the negotiations with China. He mentioned that he is great friends with China, but when it comes to what they're doing so far, they have imposed a 30% tariff, and simultaneously, President Trump wants them to give us magnets. He's referring to the trade. President Trump said, if they don't give us magnets, then we have to charge them a 200% tariff or something, but we're not going to have a problem, I don't think, with that. That's what President Trump is saying so far. So that is some important news. I think when that news came out, we did see the market slow a little bit. That could be one of the reasons why the market sold off to some extent. Now, when it comes to other pieces of news, keep in mind that today was very minor for earnings, but tomorrow we have some bank earnings, and much of it's quite minor, but things get very serious on Wednesday, because on Wednesday we have Kohl's announcing earnings in the morning, and then after market close, we essentially have Nvda. Nvidia is going to be a big one, and that could cause a lot of volatility by Thursday, so be ready for Nvidia's earnings tomorrow. I do expect a big move. On top of this, I want to add on that right now the market is at greed. That's making up the majority of sentiment. Like I said, sentiment is still holding up. Indicators suggest that we're still quite neutral. And then overall, the put to call option ratio is at greed. That's making up the majority of sentiment. The VIX is also neutral for now. So keep all of that in mind. With that being said, now we're just going to focus on the charts. What's going to likely happen from this point on? So I like to go over the bullish and bearish cases, not because I'm trying to be biased. I'm actually trying to be unbiased when doing so. And I want to let you guys know that as day traders, you have to be very adaptable. You have to be able to adapt to what the market gives you. One day we could be pumping, but the next day, if there's a big announcement about tariffs, if something happens on the news, a new war, anything could really happen. So you always want to be prepared for that. That's why you always want to have the bullish and bearish cases in mind. And then I will give you guys my prediction right after that. So as far as Tesla's going on the more micro level, we are looking more bullish, at least on the 4 hour time frame with this bull flag breakouts. But as we approach this like 348 to 350 zone, we do like to reject a lot. It is kind of tough for Tesla to break that. So it might cause a little bit of like consolidation before this attempts to break out. On top of that, the daily time frame is still bullish. Even if we come down a bit and consolidate, we could still eventually break out and go a lot higher. I still lean more bullish overall. Now, if you're bullish, okay, if you want to see Tesla break out, I want to see us hold above 350. If 350 holds, I think we could be going as high as this high over here around 358 next. If we could hold 350, close above it, and we keep holding it, I'm looking for 358, then eventually 367 as our targets. That's the bullish case. If Tesla announces some good news, it could be the case. If you're bearish, okay, well, the first thing is that Tesla's in a range. We have support between 335 and 338. Tesla loves to bounce around here, and we like to reject closer to 350. So that's like your range right now. If you want to be a big bear, you want to see Tesla fail at 330. If 330 fails us, Tesla could be dumping to 322 or below, and it could potentially make new lows compared to what we saw last week. That is the more bearish case. So lose 330, it's more bearish. Break 350 and hold it, we're more bullish. I'm in the middle, and then I do lean more bullish later on. And let me explain. So when you look at this, Tesla, for example, was trying to break out here. We touched 311, we consolidated. Then we got a nice green bar, went a little higher. Then we consolidated. Then we saw another green bar. Then we consolidated for a day. Then we got another green bar. See what I'm saying? We don't like to just break out and explode a lot of the time. As of recent, when Tesla sees these uptrends, we do have some consolidation phases. So, with the market possibly selling off, depending on what we see tomorrow and depending on the data that comes out, it depends on this data, of course, consumer confidence and our manufacturing numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla retests around 345. If it doesn't hold, we could retest the low 340s to 338, reaccumulates, then eventually try to break out for like 350 plus, and then we're going to be looking for that push higher. But I think that's what Tesla could be doing. There could be some consolidation between 345 and 338. I would not be surprised if Tesla comes back down, bounces, just trades sideways before it attempts to break out a lot higher. So I hope that's as clear as possible. There's a very good chance that that is what could be coming. So look for some consolidation right here in this range between this 346 areas resistance and 338 as support. There's a good chance we kind of go back and forth, and then if we eventually try to break out higher, I think that's what Tesla could be doing as my prediction. But watch your levels just to be safe. But that's my prediction for now. So we'll see how it goes. When it comes to other factors such as SPY, we're bullish because of this. We're bullish in terms of the trends. So as we dip, we get bought back up. We dip, we get bought back up. And if we dip again, we're going to likely get bought back up. That's what we favor for now. If you want to be a bear, you want to see SPY fail at 340 and 338. If we start losing those, we could be dipping to like 333. To be a big bear, you want to see us fail at 333. If we lose 333, it's bearish. I'm sorry, did I say 333? I think I'm still thinking of Tesla. I meant 633. Sorry about that, guys. If 633 fails on SPY, we're going to be dumping lower. But if we break resistance at 646, we're looking for a breakout to new all-time highs. I'm in the middle. I do think we might pop tomorrow morning, but there is a possibility of us retesting 642, then potentially 640 to 638. But then even if we dip just a little bit, so long as we make a higher low compared to this low, we could be bouncing, continuing to rally towards the end of the week. This is what the trend suggests. Dip, then big bounce. Dip, then big bounce. Dip, then big bounce. That's what we could be doing, at least for now. Nvidia's earnings could be another factor affecting this, but that's what I see on SPY. We might pop and start to sell off a bit before we see a much larger bounce. On the QQQ, we're bouncing off support. Now, if we end up losing 566, we could be dumping lower, but if we break 575, we're looking for a bounce. We could reaccumulate and then dip back down to like 566 to 568. Then we'll see if we hold it, start breaking out for 575 or above as we're holding this support. So look for somewhat of a sell-off to 566 to 568. Then we'll see if we reaccumulate. And overall, I think we're doing a fantastic job. For the IWM, we could kind of pop in the morning and start dipping back down towards 231 to 230. and then we're going to see if this reaccumulates and starts to bounce higher. I lean towards 340 to 345 on this based off this inverse head and shoulders for the future. Now, the future does not have to be tomorrow, right, to get to 340. It could take like another week to get to 340. But for tomorrow, there could be a little bit more downside to retest this previous high at 231 to 230 before it tries to bounce again. ES has a bull flag. We're going to see if ES consolidates and dips to 64.40. It could even go a little bit lower. We're going to see if 64.40 holds tomorrow or not. If not, we could be dipping to the low 6400s, then bounce and continue to break to new all-time highs past 6500. If we break 6500 right off the bat, though, we could remain bullish. But if we lose 64.60, I could see 64.40 then 6400, and then we're going to be watching to see if we bounce after that. NQ is looking more decent. We are consolidating right here, but notice it's making lower highs. High here came down, lower high came down. Might be retesting 23,465. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for 23,300. And then I want to see this basically bounce like this. However, if we hold above 23,650, we could be breaking out a lot higher. If we lose 23,465, we could be dipping. But overall, I want to see this reaccumulate and start pushing. I do see potential, so keep that in mind. As far as Bitcoin goes, we're making lower highs right here. This could be a little bit weaker. I want to see this basically come down to 107,000. Then we're going to be watching to see if we get a big bounce or not. Tesla basically has this nice white coffee and styled accumulation. Like I said before, I lean towards 367 in the future. Before we push to 367, we could come down tomorrow and consolidate. Based off what SPY and the QQQ are doing and based off what I'm seeing on Tesla, there's a good chance that that is what could be coming before this attempts to break out and go a lot higher, back up towards the 360. So there's a very, very good chance Tesla stock could be attempting to do that. So watch some consolidation before it attempts to break out past 350 for 358 and 367. Nvidia has a range. It looks good, but it depends on earnings. Might push for 182, and we'll see if earnings pumps this up or not. And then Aapl has a possible head and shoulders. This could be bearish for the markets if it rejects. There's a left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder, but we need to lose 224 to really start dipping. If we hold above 230, we could still bounce higher, so you never know with these head and shoulders. They could be traps, so watch for confirmation if we end up losing support or not. With that being said, guys, I'm going to be very fast with the rest of these. I have very limited time today. So Netflix is range bound. We have resistance at 1229 and support at 1200. I think we consolidate and we'll see if we break up or down depending on which level we break. But for now, we're just consolidating. MSTR looks more bearish. We got a rejection, a gap down rejection. We could be dipping back down, back towards 333 to 330, and we'll see if we bounce. For Celsius, we have support at 60.5, which we've lost. So it might be dipping a bit more for like 58, and we'll see if we bounce. Supermicro is trying to push here. We could be looking for essentially 45 plus, and we'll see if we break out higher from there. Palantir is making higher lows here. Look for some consolidation, unfortunately. It might just kind of push for like 160, come back down to 158 and consolidate. Then we'll see if we start bouncing higher. For Rivian, we have a nice accumulation right here. 12.89 is our support. As long as it holds, we could be looking for an attempt for like 13.5 could be coming after that. SoFi is very bullish looking. We did talk about how this was looking strong, and we're making higher highs and higher lows. Could consolidate and push for 27.5 next. It looks quite strong to me. For AMD, we're not looking that great. We're actually range bound between 61 and 67. Could retest 161 before it tries to bounce for 167, but I see a little bit of a dip to 161, then a bounce likely coming. ARM might retest 136 and we'll see if we bounce. Look for 136 and we'll see if buyers defend. If not, we're going down to 133. PayPal is looking resilient so long as we hold 69 flat. I think we could be pushing back up to 70.5. It's not that volatile though, so I wouldn't really trade it too much. Coinbase needs to reclaim 310 to bounce. If it doesn't, there's going to be a risk of us dipping towards like 301. So be careful with Coinbase. Amazon might be retesting 225 and we'll see if we bounce or not. It looks like it's turning here, so I could see a risk of us potentially seeing some downside. Back down to 225, we'll see if we bounce. Looking at Meta, we need to get back above 757. If not, we could be dipping to 750. Google also needs to get back above 210. If not, we could be dipping back down to 207. And then Microsoft could be dipping back down towards 502. So we'll see if that holds. If not, we could be dipping lower. So be very, very careful. The VIX, we're going to see if this kind of like comes down tomorrow to once again establish its base. And then it could start pushing a little higher temporarily back to the 15 plus area. And then we're going to be looking for rejection again. So notice that it keeps on forming these tops, right? Push, rejection, push, rejection, push, rejection. And we could see the same thing coming for like the opposite for SPY and the QQQ. Maybe the market like As this pushes higher, this is caused by the market potentially seeing a sell-off temporarily, but then the market bounces hard, and that's why the VIX rejects again. So that could be what this is indicative of. The 10 years kind of flats, the dollar is kind of pushing, which could be a bearish signal, and then crude is kind of like pushing as well. So honestly, I do see some weakness. It is possible the market kind of pops in the morning and starts to dip a little bit. I would like to see that, because even if we get some kind of sell-off, we do favor a big bounce afterwards. That could be another buying opportunity just for the short term in terms of trades. But when it comes to like a September sell-off, that could come later. We're not ready for a big sell-off yet unless we start breaking structure. As of right now, the market's making higher highs and higher lows, so we just have to follow the trend and watch your levels just to be safe. For Tesla, we could see some sideways price action, but I do favor upside for a couple of weeks out. I do think we're going to be pushing to 367 soon. We might consolidate here first before we get that breakout, so please remember that. With that being said, guys, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great rest of your guys' days, and I'll be back tomorrow before market open for another update. Until then, I wish you all the best and peace out.